Alright guys, as promised, I'm going to take you guys along as I rebuild or update my breeding sections. I've said it in the last few videos, in the last couple of years actually, that I'm going to redo it, and I keep on going back on my word. I get caught up with other things, but this time there's no going back. And what I mean by that is I totally demolished everything. I cleaned everything out. There's nothing left inside there. No more boxes, nothing. So now I have no choice but to have to redo it. Everything's cleaned out. The majority of the webs are gone. I did leave the perches because obviously I'm not going to do anything different with those. But everything else is gutted out. This way I forced myself to do it. I've said it in the last couple years that I'm going to do it. And I get caught up with other things and I lose track. And you know, I know a lot of guys were saying, hey, you know, just keep less birds. But I just can't help myself. I don't know how to explain it. I'm sure most of you guys know exactly what I mean. I see 16 boxes and I'm going to put 16 pairs in there. And there's no way this section, which is roughly 6 by 8, will hold 16 pairs. Shouldn't hold 16 pair. And I think that's where all the problems I've had in the past come from. The fact that there are too many birds in too small of a space. So I went ahead and did it. I just one afternoon on garbage day actually, I went in here with a hammer and I just destroyed everything. This way I'm forced to do it. I'm not going to go back on my word this year, guys. I'm going to do 12 boxes. I have all the materials cut out. I actually did all the measurements on paper and ran to my local Lowe's and had them cut all the measurements I need. So all I have to really do is assemble it, glue it up, and then start meticulous work of the nest fronts because I have to redo all those as well. Plus I'm working on a different design, so I want to redo them anyway. But there it is, guys, gutted out. Floor's been scraped and cleaned. The walls, that's as clean as I can get them. I thought about maybe sanding some of those spots down where the nest bowls were, but I'm not going to do any of that. So it's just how it's going to be. I mean, what's the point of going the extra mile when they're just going to crap on it anyway? So as you guys can see, I used 1/4-inch plywood on the walls so I don't see the studs. It made it neat when I built the loft. The plywood was relatively cheap. It was like $7 a sheet, so I said, why not? It makes everything look a lot neater, and it makes hanging things a lot simpler. I don't have to find a stud necessarily because this is all wood. I can hang anything anywhere. So in this case, I'm not going to put a back on the nest boxes. So I save a little bit of money there, not having to buy that additional amount of plywood, because if you guys noticed, everything shot up. Everything is double the cost. It's unbelievable. A $5 2x4 is unreal. I mean, just unreal. But that's the way of the world now, and we just have to deal with it. I am going to do raised floors just like in the hallway and in the sections. I am going to go on the 2x6s in here as well. I may go a little taller depending on where the boxes will come up, so you guys can see where the boxes used to be. And I'm gonna go 2x6 here. I'm gonna have maybe a 2-inch space, which is fine. I'm gonna leave that as kind of a feather catch, and then maybe vacuum that out if it ever bothers me. But I don't want the nest, the bottom of the nest boxes to be exactly on the wood. It just, I don't know. I don't want them to think that the entire floor is theirs. If that's even going to be an issue or not. But I've had cockbirds that they want to dominate the entire loft, and it becomes an issue. So 12 boxes, 12 pairs, and I'll take you guys along with me. Well, guys, we did it. Sorry about the background noise. I just fed the boys and the girls. It's a little later than usual, and they kind of in a panic. I'm trying to walk slowly through here, but I think it came out beautifully. It is exactly what I wanted. The sizes of the boxes are much larger than the previous boxes, and then of course the depth is much larger. The number is smaller. I went from 16 to 12 like we were talking about, and that I'm hoping will help combat a lot of the problems I've had in the past few breeding seasons with eggs being crushed and babies being killed and things of that nature. So again, I'm not really going to go too far in depth with the sizes. I'm going to tell you exactly what I have. The boxes are roughly 29 inches wide, 20 inches deep, and 16 inches high. And guys, don't focus on that specific size. I'm not saying that that's an ideal breeder size or an ideal box size for a pair of breeders or anything like that. I'm simply saying I had that available space from wall to wall. And that's what I built. I built it to accommodate this section. So don't get too stuck on exact measurements. I know I've had guys ask me in the past what are the sizes of my boxes and things like that. So just don't get too stuck on that. I made them to fit this area, this space. So then they ended up being 20 inches because I didn't want to go past the window seal. 16 inches high, and then again we went 29, I think it was like 28, almost 29 inches wide. And I think they came out tremendously. I know we've had a bit of a confusion in the past when I mentioned I won't be using nest fronts, and a lot of guys I think misunderstood what I was trying to say. I am using nest fronts, but only for the purpose of pairing the birds up when I add the hens to the cockbirds. Once that's over, once there's eggs in the bowl, I'm going to remove the nest fronts and they're going to be stored away. That's the same reason I didn't put doors on the nest fronts. There's no reason for me to add a door to it, make it fancy, because again, I won't be using it for the entire season almost, apart from mating the birds. The style or the design I used isn't something original. It's been used plenty of times in the past. I'm going to try to use this one here since there's more light. It's super simple. I mean, it took me all of one afternoon to kind of figure it out. I made it, and excuse me, I'm trying to use one hand here and it's kind of tough because everything's kind of kittywampus. But basically I made a 6-inch puck. We have a 1/2 inch notch and then a 3.5 inch notch, and then I put 2 brackets in the back, and I'll show you what those are for. But basically when I'm pairing up the birds, I'm going to be using the 1/2 inch notch, and that'll allow plenty of interior space for the cocks and the hens, the cocks that chase the hens, things of that nature, and I think that'll work out beautifully. The boxes are big enough for 2 bowls, so I'm hoping to be able to utilize that this year. Maybe keep the birds from nesting on the floor too much, things like that. So I think it's going to work out great. Now, with that being said, when I'm not breeding and I want the cocks to maintain their boxes, I'm going to move it over to the 3-inch mark or the 3.5 inch mark. That'll give the cocks plenty of a ledge to stand and maintain their boxes and keep the interior of the box clean, so I don't have to unnecessarily scrape it over and over throughout the year. And then when of course they are mated and they have their babies, then it becomes that much more simpler. I pull them out, excuse me, because again I'm using one hand here, I'm trying to focus. Pull them out and store them away. You really can't see them. They kind of get tucked away underneath. It doesn't affect the birds whatsoever. I mean, it is a nice big space. I think when it comes to nest boxes, the bigger the better. Honestly, guys, I mean, let's just for an example, excuse the bowls because they're pretty dirty here. I haven't cleaned them out yet. But there's one bowl. Look how much space I have. Here could be another bowl. And there's still plenty of freaking space, just for an idea. I mean, initially I thought maybe I would be using a divider wall of some sort to keep the babies from going over and just stepping all over the eggs and bothering mama when she's down on eggs. But what I may eventually do is just raise the bowl up somewhere around here. There's still plenty of space for the hen and the cock to jump up on the nest, keep the ventilation underneath the bowl. And it's it might be something I do later on. I'm still debating now what I want to do, see how the season goes. See if the boxes do work out. I mean, honestly, there's no going back now. I've already destroyed everything, and unfortunately, that's just the way I function. If I see 16 boxes, guys, I'm going to put 16 pairs in here, and I've done it in the past few years, and I've always found a way to justify it, and I was just causing more trouble than it's worth. So, unfortunately, because of the way I function, I had to come in here, I had to tear everything down, I had to force myself to rebuild them, and I couldn't be happier, honestly. I did utilize the top box that was still up there only because I didn't want to have to rebuild anything different. I may not use that as for a pair of breeders necessarily. I just don't want the birds to go up there. You know how it is. You go in the loft, the birds want to go to the highest spot in the loft, and then they want to run away from you. And I'm just not too fond of having birds fly over my head. Things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and close that off, but I kept it up there just to clean everything up. And the next step would be the floors. I'm not going to show you guys that because I've already showed you how to do the floors. And one thing that I know I'm not going to like as much is the floors come up to about 7 inches, and I have an available space from there to there at about 9 inches. So there'll be about a 2-inch gap, which means that the bottom box will almost be on the floor, and I know I don't like that, but I wanted to gain as much interior space as possible, knowing that I'm gonna store the nest fronts away, and I know I was gonna lose that couple inches there, so I wanted to have at least 16 inches because you know, reduce it by a few inches. Now you have a 14-inch space, and I wanted to have a box large enough for that, and that's the only reason I made them at 16 instead of smaller. You can go much smaller. Again, don't focus on the size, because I made this to fit this space. If I were to do them in a brand new loft where space was not an an option or not a deterrent, I would make them as big as possible, 36 inches by 24 inches deep, and I'd probably make them about 24 inches high. Bigger the better. Something you can keep the birds locked up in and things like that. And with that being said, I use this wire, primarily because I had it available to me. But now that I'm looking at it, I mean, it works out beautifully for feeders. I can use it this way. They can easily poke their heads out drinking in water or drinking feed, or I can put them on the inside and still work the same way. I can keep them locked up because, again, there is a lot of space in there for a pair of birds. They don't necessarily have to come out. So until I see eggs in the bowl, I can physically feed and water individually. I don't plan on it. That's a lot of work, and we're going into the winter months, cold. The water freezes, and the last thing I want to do is come out here and replace 12 different bottles of water, things like that. So I'm really trying not to have to feed in the boxes, but the option is there. You guys also may notice, for the ones that are very keen-eyed, I did use 1.5 by 3 PVC coated wire, whatever they call it, but I did use some that go vertically or horizontally, and then I used some that went vertically. The coil or the roll of wire that I had was 48 inches in height, and when I started cutting these, because I like this pattern a little bit more, I had just a real small, about 20-inch or so inch piece of leftover, and I didn't want to throw all that away, so I found a use for it, and I just made them 6 vertically and 6 horizontally. And honestly, you can't really tell unless you really pay attention to it. I kind of like the way it looks. I kind of staggered them just like I did my other box. So you'll have one going one way, one going the other way. Whatever. It's just something to point out, I guess. Something fun. And, I didn't want to throw away any of the wire. This stuff was pretty expensive, and I had a nice big roll of it from previous projects. So I was able to, I was trying to utilize as much as possible. Kind of frugal that way. I don't like to really throw away things that I know I'm going to need. We're always building stuff for the birds. We're always modifying something. So I like to have scraps laying around, pieces of wood of all kinds, and because we're always doing something. We always need something for the birds, and I enjoy having it around, not having to run to Lowe's for every single thing. So that's why I have it. That's why I use it. Again, guys, hope you guys like it as much as I do. I think it's going to work out. At least I'm hoping it is. It's going to be a trial and error kind of thing. We'll find out at the end of the season how we fare. But regardless, I think going from 16 pair down to 12 pair is huge. The birds will have that much more room, and that much more available space to them, so that hopefully, we eliminate the fighting and the broken eggs and things like that. So I think it came out good, guys. Hope you guys like it as much as I do. We'll be putting the birds in here shortly. I'll be putting 12 cocks in here and 8 cocks in the other section, and that'll be it. That'll be the last of it. I hope to not have to breed anything in the garage this year. Again, I am not really disciplined. I may eventually do it, so don't beat me up too bad over it if I end up putting a pair or 2 in the garage, but I hope not to. I hope to finally get that, that discipline I need to keep only as many as I need. Having more birds doesn't necessarily mean you increase the odds of winning anything. It's quality over quantity, and I know that sounds cliche, but that's really what it is, guys. You're better off breeding out of better birds than a large number of birds, and hopefully that one will come out, But whatever. Pan over one more time, see if you guys, show you guys exactly what I did, and we'll see you on the next one, guys. I went ahead and threw a bird in here. This is my Chris Bruzilla bird, my 250-mile winner from last year. Again, I'm not highlighting the bird. I just couldn't help myself. I figured I would throw one in there just to get an idea of what she looks like. He's kind of excited. He knows he's been in his loft before. He wants to get out. He sees the aviary right there, so he thinks he's going to get out, but whatever. I couldn't help myself. I figured I'll show you guys as well. All right, guys.